The first thing I became aware of was a pounding in my skull, a rhythmic throb that felt like a tiny, angry blacksmith was forging nails behind my eyes. Note to self, I groaned internally, never again mix bourbon with existential dread about student loans. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing the pain away. That's when I felt them. Soft, cool fingers gently pressing against my temples. My eyes flew open, and I jerked my head back. A stunningly beautiful woman with worry etched in the lines of her perfect face hovered over me. "Elliot, is your head hurting again?" she murmured, her voice like silk. My mind went blank. Elliot? Who the hell is Elliot? And then the dam broke. A torrent of memories, not mine, flooded my brain. Images, names, emotions, a whole damn lifetime slammed into me with the force of a freight train. When the tsunami receded, leaving me gasping on the shores of a reality that couldn't be mine, I had just one silent, screaming thought. You have got to be kidding me. I, Leo Chen, a 22-year-old who just celebrated scraping a pass in his final exams, was now Elliot Sterling, a 42-year-old billionaire CEO. And not just any CEO. I was the clueless, heartless, doomed-to-die poorly cannon fodder from the trashy web novel The Gilded Cage I'd ranted about online just last night. In this story, the hero was a fool who let his fake batter walk all over him while his real child suffered and died, and I'd just woken up as him. My stomach churned. The story's tragic heroine, the real daughter, what was her name? Right, in the book she was just the real one, but in these new, vivid memories, she had a face, a history. Her name was Lily, and today was the day she arrived. I pushed the woman's, Wendy's, my wife's, hands away and stood up, the plush carpet of the Sterling Mansion's drawing room feeling unstable beneath my feet. My gaze swept past my son, Sebastian, who was glaring with teenage disdain, and past the girl clinging to Wendy's, Anastasia, the cuckoo in the nest, the beloved imposter. My eyes found the grand oak-paneled entrance. There, framed in the doorway like a ghost from a tragedy, stood a child. The memories said she was 15. She looked 12. Dressed in a faded, patched dress that was too short, her arms were stick-thin, her feet, bare and caked with dried mud and what looked like blood, peeked out from the hem. Her dark hair was a tangled bird's nest, and she held herself so still, so small, as if trying to disappear into the shadow of the doorframe. The entire family, Wendy, Sebastian, Anastasia, were pointedly looking anywhere but at her. A white-hot fury, entirely foreign to Leo but burning with Elliot's newfound paternal rage, ignited in my chest. These people, this family, monsters. For a panicked second, my old self resurfaced. Holy crap, I don't know how to be a dad. I still eat cereal for dinner. But one look at that shattered, hopeful, terrified face extinguished the panic. It was simple. This child had been starved of everything: food, safety, love. My job was to feed her, spoil her rotten. It was the only equation that made sense. I walked towards her, the marble floor cold under my own bare feet. The room held its breath. Sebastian made a sound of protest, but I didn't hear it. I stopped before her and slowly crouched down, bringing myself to her eye level. The smell of dust and distant rain clung to her. I reached out, my hand trembling slightly. "Get it together, Leo, Elliot, whoever you are now," and gently brushed a strand of matted hair from her forehead. Her whole body flinched, a tremor running through her like a frightened animal. "Lily," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, thick with an emotion I didn't have to fake. "It's my fault I lost you." Her head, which had been bowed, snapped up. Huge, dark eyes, swimming with tears and a lifetime of hurt, searched mine. The hope in them was so fragile it could shatter with a breath. You don't think I'm a liar?" she whispered, the words barely audible. My heart clenched. What a sin! I cupped her dirty, tear-streaked face with both hands, my thumbs wiping away the warmth tracking through the grime. "Silly girl," I whispered back, my tone as soft as I could make it. "What could you possibly lie to me about? You're my daughter." I stood, taking her small, icy hand in mine. It felt like holding a bird's skeleton. "Let's get you cleaned up," I said, and led her, past the stunned silence of my family, towards the guest bathroom. The next hour was a whirlwind. I ran the bath, testing the temperature like I was defusing a bomb. I found the fluffiest towels and a robe. "The water's ready, Lily. I'll be right outside," I said, my voice gentle. Then I summoned Mrs. Henderson, the stern but kind head housekeeper. "Please, help her. Be very gentle. She's hurt." As soon as the door closed, the storm I'd walked away from broke. "Father, have you lost your mind?" Sebastian hissed, stepping forward. "You're letting some street urchin into our home without verification?" "Elliot, this is too rash. The DNA test results aren't back yet. Look at how distressed Anastasia is." On cue, Anastasia's eyes welled up with picture-perfect tears. She clutched Wendy's sleeve. "Daddy, do you not want me anymore?" Seeing their united front, thinking of the scars I'd glimpsed on Lily's arms and the despair in her eyes, the fury returned, clean and sharp. Without a word, I moved. Crack! My open palm connected with Sebastian's cheek with a sound that echoed in the vast room. He stumbled back, hand to his face, utterly stunned. I didn't stop. I swung backhand, the blow just as fierce, catching Anastasia mid-simper. Her faux tears became real ones of shock and pain as she staggered. "Elliot!" Wendy shrieked. "Have you gone insane?" "Have I?" I wheeled on her, my voice a low, dangerous rumble. I pointed a shaking finger towards the bathroom. "Wendy, open your eyes. The child in there, covered in wounds, dressed in rags, is the daughter you carried for 9 months. Can you even fathom what she's endured for 15 years? And you have the nerve to pity this actress?" I took a menacing step closer. "If those eyes are only good for watching this pathetic performance, I'll have them donated to someone who needs them." Before she could retort, I turned to Sebastian, who was staring with a mixture of pain and hatred. "And you, has your conscience been surgically removed? That is your flesh and blood sister. You feel no outrage for her suffering? Only concern for the thief who stole her life? The woman who swapped them was her grandmother. It was her family that made your sister life hell. You're not just blind, Sebastian. You're an idiot." I swept my gaze over all 3 of them. "Get out of my sight, now. One more word and you can follow that word right out the front door." The DNA report, when it arrived, was a formality. I placed it gently in front of Lily, now clean and swimming in one of Mrs. Henderson's old sweaters. "From today, your official name is Lillian Iris Sterling. Iris for the flower that blooms resiliently after the storm. It's the name your mother and I chose before you were born. A lie, but a necessary one. She needed roots, even fabricated ones." With her identity settled, it was time for justice. I had the old servant, Marla, arrested immediately. The predictable circus ensued. Anastasia wept. "Please, Daddy, she's old, she's sorry." Wendy pleaded for family harmony. Sebastian argued it was in the past. "Let it go?" I echoed, icy. "She committed a monstrous fraud and subjected my child to 15 years of abuse. Let it go? Not only will she face the law, but I am also suing the entire Miller family for abduction and neglect." "Father, you can't," Sebastian shouted. "They're Anastasia's family. How will she face this?" My last shred of patience for his willful blindness evaporated. I gently took Lily's arm and rolled up the sleeve, revealing the roadmap of scars, old burns, welts, a horrific tapestry of pain. "This is how the Miller family raised my daughter." My voice shook. "Does this not break your heart? Don't they deserve to burn?" Wendy gasped, a flicker of genuine horror finally breaking through her self-absorption. Sebastian just frowned deeper, his loyalty to Anastasia an unbreakable chain. "But Anastasia!" I saw red. My foot lashed out, catching him squarely in the stomach. He crumpled to the floor, wheezing in shock. I didn't look back. Taking Lily's hand, I led her upstairs. In the quiet of the hallway, I knelt before her again. Lily, listen to me. In this house, you listen to me, no one else. If anyone wrongs you, you stand up for yourself on the spot. If the sky falls, I'm here to hold it up. Your brother may not love you. Your mother may not know how, but I do. You will never have to beg for love or compromise yourself for scraps of affection. Do you understand? She looked at me, her newly clean face pale, but her eyes clearer. Slowly, she nodded. I understand, Father. Over the next few days, I reshaped the Sterling world around her. Designers flocked in. The best suite on the second floor next to mine was gutted and rebuilt for her. I evicted Sebastian and Anastasia to the third floor. In the garden, I pointed to Wendy's prized fussy orchids. Dig them up, find out what flowers Lily likes. Plant those. I had a swing installed under the old magnolia tree. I would build it myself, piece by piece. The homecoming gala was a masterclass in silent warfare. The elite of Cloudhaven filled the ballroom. Willie, in a sapphire gown that matched her uncertain eyes, stood by my side. Across the room, Sebastian stood defiantly with Anastasia, and there, holding Anastasia's hand with possessive pride, was Brandon Thorne, Lily's actual fiancé, according to the old family pact. I took the microphone. Thank you for joining me to celebrate the return of my greatest treasure, my biological daughter, Lillian Iris Sterling. Consequently, the status of my adopted daughter, Anastasia Miller, will be formally removed from the Sterling family registry. She is to vacate the Sterling residence by tomorrow. Chaos. Sebastian erupted. You're humiliating her. Rose, Lily, has turned you into a monster. Brandon stepped forward, playing the magnanimous peacemaker. Sir, surely this is too harsh on Anna. She was an infant. She's a victim too. I cut him off. Which is why she is merely being removed, not prosecuted. But you, Brandon, are clearly as blind as you are disloyal. You are unworthy of my daughter. The betrothal is null and void. The fallout was swift. I had security escort a sputtering Sebastian and a sobbing Anastasia out. Wendy, weeping, begged for mercy. You can go with them, I said flatly, and the fight left her eyes. The divorce papers would come later. In the novel, Wendy was a jealous, shallow woman who coldly neglected Lily. I wouldn't give her a cent of the Sterling fortune. I enrolled Lily in the best schools, hired tutors, and let her explore every artistic and intellectual passion. I brought her to the office, showing her the empire. This will be yours one day, I told her. What about Sebastian? She asked. I snorted. That lovesick fool? Don't waste a thought on him. Wendy's jealousy finally boiled over. She cornered Lily, hissing vile accusations, calling her a husband-stealing little witch. To my immense pride, Lily didn't cower. She caught Wendy's wrist before the slap could land, her voice cold. You are filthy-minded and disgusting. I stepped out of the shadows, applauding. Well said. I then threw the damning photos at Wendy's feet, evidence of her long-term affair. The divorce was swift and public. When a smear campaign painted me as a cruel man and Lily as a manipulator, I retaliated with nuclear force, releasing the evidence of Wendy's infidelity and her verbal abuse of Lily. The public turned on them with a vengeance. The final test was the business climax from the novel, the bidding for the Golden Ridge plot. In the story, the Sterlings won it, only to discover an archaeological site, bankrupting them. It was the catalyst for Lily's final betrayal and death. This time, I let Sebastian steal our bidding figures, believing he was selling them to Brandon Thorne to win Anna's love. On the day, Sterling Holdings' bid came in just below Thorne Enterprises. Brandon, with Anastasia and a smug Sebastian by his side, swaggered over in victory. Better luck next time, sir, Brandon gloated. I simply smiled. Sometimes, nephew, what you rush to claim isn't a gold mine. It's a grave. A month later, the burial site was discovered, freezing Thorne's assets and crippling them. I then anonymously tipped off the IRS about the Thorne family's creative accounting, burying them completely. As for Sebastian, I handed the security footage of his corporate espionage to the police. The look on his face as the handcuffs closed was almost worth the heartache. Almost. Years flowed by. The Sterling Group soared. Lily blossomed into a brilliant, confident woman. She got into an elite university. At her celebratory party, a quieter, weathered Sebastian appeared to offer congratulations. I nodded, and later sent him to manage a remote overseas branch. "Don't come back without real achievement," I told him. At university, Lily, Brandon, and Anastasia's paths crossed again. A changed, broken Brandon tried to woo her. Anastasia, seething, publicly called her a thief. This time, Lily didn't wait for me. She turned and slapped Anastasia, then delivered a stinging backhand to Brandon when he intervened. "Mind your own business," she said, cool as ice. When I told her over the phone, I laughed with pure joy. "My girl! That's my girl!" The next day, I gave her a subsidiary to run. "Have fun with it. If you lose it all, it's on me. Let's see if the girl who slaps faces can fight a business war." I made sure Brandon and Anastasia's descent was complete. Broken and penniless, they turned on each other in the most vile ways, ending up in the gutters of society, just as the original plot had destined for Lily and me. On the day of Lily's graduation, I handed her a simple folder. "For you, my brilliant daughter." Inside were the share transfer documents for Sterling Group and her appointment as CEO. She stared, speechless. "It's yours," I said, smiling. "I've booked a round-the-world ticket. I'm retiring. This old man is tired." Tears filled her eyes, but she was smiling. She knew. She had always known, in that deep, intuitive way children have, that the soul inside her father was different. The man who had found her, a scared ghost in the doorway, had been a fierce and unwavering protector. He'd given her not just a world, but the courage to rule it. He was also, she remembered with a private smile, a man who secretly ordered KFC at midnight, played mobile games obsessively, and cursed at the news. A kind, funny soul in a patriarch's body. Years later, when she brought the love of her life to meet me, I grilled the young man mercilessly before finally clapping him on the shoulder. "He'll do. Take care of her. She's my everything." When my time in this borrowed life finally ended, I held her hand. The illness was swift. "Don't be sad, Lily Iris," I whispered, using the full name I'd given her. "I'm just going on the ultimate vacation." She cried, but she wasn't broken. She was strong, the strongest Sterling there had ever been. As I closed my eyes, Leo Chen's consciousness fading, I felt a profound peace. The plot was ashes, the villain was redeemed, the heroine was queen, and this unexpected, bewildering, magnificent second life had been the greatest story I'd ever been part of. The stillness in the master bedroom was profound, broken only by the soft, rhythmic beep of the heart monitor. I, Leo in Elliot, felt the last tendrils of connection to the opulent world of the Sterlings slipping away, like sand through frail fingers. My eyes, clouded but clear in intent, found Lily's. Her hand, the one that now signed billion-dollar deals with a steady flourish, trembled in mine. "No more vacations," she whispered, a tear tracing the elegant line of her cheekbone. "You've earned a permanent residence." I managed a weak, rattling chuckle. Permanent sounds taxing. I was thinking more of a long sabbatical, in a place with better room service. The effort to speak was immense, a weight on my chest. She laughed, a wet, beautiful sound that filled the sterile room with life. "You'd complain about the service within an hour." "Probably." I squeezed her hand, or tried to. The signal from my brain seemed to get lost on the way. "Listen, the board. Old man Hargreaves still thinks a penis is a prerequisite for leadership. Don't let him near the innovation budget." "Already sidelined him to the Historical Archives Committee," she said, a flicker of my own ruthless cunning in her smile. Good girl. A wave of fatigue crashed over me. The lights seemed to dim. Sebastian. Her expression softened but didn't waver. He's doing well in Singapore. The offshore green tech division is thriving. We speak occasionally. It's civil. Civil is good. Family is complicated. My breath hitched. The monitor's beep grew more insistent. The swing, under the magnolia. The rope will fray. Get Henry from the gardens. Only he knows the knot I used. I will, Dad. The dad was a balm, a final, perfect gift. There was so much more. I wanted to tell her about Leo Chen, about takeout boxes and all-nighters, and the sheer, unadulterated panic of waking up as a fictional fool. I wanted to explain that the love wasn't borrowed, it was built, brick by terrifying brick, for her. But the words were gone, lost in the fog, so I poured everything into the look I gave her. A look of pride so fierce it was a force of nature, of gratitude so deep it could fill oceans. My lily iris, I breathed, the sound barely a whisper. You were the best plot twist of all. Her face, my last beautiful sight in this world, blurred into a halo of light. The beeping of the monitor elongated into a single, unwavering tone. And then, silence. For Leo Chen, there was no tunnel of light, no celestial review board. There was a sensation of being unstuck, like a book snapped shut and then immediately reopened at a random page. There was a dizzying lurch, a scream of protesting atoms, and then pain. A different pain. Not the quiet surrender of a failing heart, but a sharp, nauseating throb behind the eyes. The smell of cheap bourbon and cheaper carpet cleaner assaulted my nostrils. I groaned, pushing myself up from a sticky floor. I was in a cramped, messy studio apartment. Guitar cables snaked across stained carpet. Empty pizza boxes formed a modern art sculpture on a coffee table. A laptop screen glowed in the dim light, casting a pale blue sheen on the chaos. On the screen, frozen mid-rant, was my old Reddit post. Just finished The Gilded Cage, most infuriating trash I've ever read. The dad is a moron. The real daughter deserved better. My heart hammered against my ribs, my young, 22-year-old ribs. I stumbled to the grimy bathroom mirror. Leo Chen's familiar, sleep-deprived, panicked face stared back. I was back. I was me. The relief was instant, and then immediately drowned by a tidal wave of grief so acute it bent me double over the sink. No, I whispered to my reflection, tears, Leo's tears, mixing with the grime on the porcelain. It was real. She was real. For weeks I was a ghost in my own life. My friends joked about my epic bender. My parents worried about my post-graduation funk. How could I explain? I'd been a father. I'd been a titan. Of industry. I'd loved and been loved with a ferocity that now made my old life seem like a pale watercolor sketch. I tried to find her. Of course I did. I scoured the internet for Sterling Group, Lillian Sterling, Elliot Sterling. Nothing. No multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, no tragic then triumphant heiress, no reformed CEO. The Gilded Cage was just a web novel, one of thousands with a small, devoted fan base arguing in forums about the ending. In this reality, Elliot Sterling had remained a fool. Lily had died, forgotten. The story was just a story. The despair was paralyzing. I had lost my daughter across the dimensions of fiction and reality. Then, one rain-swept Tuesday, trudging to a dismal entry-level IT job I'd taken out of sheer necessity, I saw it. A small, new cafe on a corner I passed every day. Its name was painted in elegant forest green script on the window, The Gilded Iris. My breath caught. I stood in the drizzle, staring. It couldn't be. Pushing the door open, a bell tinkled. The smell of good coffee and fresh pastry wrapped around me. The interior was warm, all polished wood and soft leather. And there, behind the counter, talking to a supplier, was a young woman. She was in her mid-20s. Her dark hair was cut in a sharp, stylish bob. She wore a simple black apron over jeans and a sweater. She wasn't the glittering heiress Lily had become, but the set of her shoulders, the keen intelligence in her eyes as she reviewed an invoice, the slight confident tilt of her head, it was her. A different version, a quieter version, but her essence was a song I knew by heart. She looked up, sensing my stare. Our eyes met. There was no shock of recognition, no cosmic fanfare, just the mild curiosity of a cafe owner looking at a drenched, bewildered customer. "Hi," she said, her voice warm, real, wonderfully ordinary. "Bit wild out there. Can I get you something to warm up? We do an excellent spiced mocha." I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My mind was a scream of static. "Lily, it's Lily, but it's not. She doesn't know you. She never will." I finally managed, my voice hoarse. "Your cafe, the name, it's unique." She smiled, a genuine, lovely smile that didn't hold the shadows of a tragic past. "Thanks. The iris is for my grandma. She always said it was the toughest flower, blooms after the hardest storms. Seemed fitting for starting a small business." She gestured around the cozy space with pride. "Iris, after the storm. The name I gave her in a life that never happened. Coincidence, it had to be. A heartbreaking, universe-mocking coincidence." "It's perfect," I said, the words thick with an emotion she couldn't possibly decipher. "A spiced mocha would be great, thank you." "Coming right up." I took a seat by the window watching her work. Her movements were efficient, graceful. She remembered a regular's usual order without being told. She laughed at a joke from the baker in the back. This Lily was happy. She was rooted. She had built this small, beautiful thing with her own hands, free from dynastic wars and toxic families. The love I felt was no less fierce. It was quieter, a background hum of profound joy and protection. I was a stranger, a customer. I could never be her father. That man, Elliot Sterling, with all his flaws and his second chance, didn't exist here. But I existed, and I could be here, on the periphery of her successful, peaceful life, bearing witness. One afternoon, as I was finishing a report on my laptop at my usual table, I overheard her on the phone. Her voice was tense, frustrated. "No, I understand the terms, Mr. Davies, but a 200% rent increase after the first year? That's not sustainable. It's predatory. I have a lease." My old instincts, the Elliot Sterling instincts that had crushed conglomerates and outmaneuvered rivals, snapped to attention. I listened, piecing it together. Her landlord, seeing the cafe's success, was trying to muscle her out, likely to install a chain store. Lila, my Lily in spirit, hung up, her shoulders slumped. She took a deep, steadying breath, the same one I'd taught her to take before a difficult board meeting. I waited until the evening rush died down. As I went to pay, I held out a simple, plain white business card I'd had made the week after I first found the cafe. It only had my name and a number. "Lila," I said, my tone casual. I couldn't help but overhear a bit earlier. Sounded like landlord trouble? She looked wary, embarrassed. It's fine. Just business negotiations." "I'm sure it is. But just in case it gets messy," I slid the card across the counter. "My older brother is a lawyer. A real shark. Real estate, contract law. He hates bullies. Tell him Leo sent you. He won't charge you for the first consultation." She looked at the card, then at me, confusion and gratitude warring in her eyes. "Leo, I couldn't—" "Please," I said, and let just a fraction of the old Elliot's steely command, the father's unwavering support, bleed into my voice. "Consider it a regular's investment. I need this place to stay open. Your spiced mocha is the only thing that gets me through my IT reports." She laughed, the tension breaking, and took the card. "Thank you, seriously." "Anytime." I walked out into the evening. I wasn't Elliot Sterling. I couldn't buy the building and gift it to her. I couldn't unleash a team of corporate lawyers to destroy her enemy. I was Leo Chen, with student debt and a mediocre job. But Leo Chen had lived a life inside a story. He had learned how to fight, how to protect, how to love with everything he had. He knew a shark of a lawyer, he'd find one tomorrow. He knew about clauses and leverage and the art of the counter-threat. The plot was different, the setting was humbler, the stakes were a single, sunny cafe, not a global empire, but the mission was the same. I turned and looked back at the gilded iris, its windows glowing warmly in the dusk. Inside, my daughter, in spirit, in soul, in every way that mattered across the fractured multiverse, was wiping down counters, safe and strong. I smiled, a true, easy smile for the first time since I'd woken up on that sticky floor. The story wasn't over, it had just changed genres. It was no longer a corporate revenge thriller or a family melodrama. It was a quiet slice of life, and I had a front row seat. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my mom asking if I'd be home for dinner. I typed back, "Sure, but I might be late tomorrow. Gotta help a friend with something." I put the phone away, shoved my hands in my pockets, and walked home, the ghost of bourbon and boardrooms finally lifting from my soul. The air smelled like rain and city and possibility. I had a daughter to watch over, in the only way left to me. And for now, for this new, quiet chapter, it was enough. It was more than enough. The lawyer, a woman named Anya Vance, who was all sharp suits and sharper eyes, was a pit bull. I found her through deep dives into legal forums and a significant chunk of my meager savings for the brotherly favor retainer. When Lila hesitantly called the number, Anya took the case with a gleam in her eye that promised legal annihilation. From my corner table, nursing an Americano, I watched the drama unfold. I saw Lila's posture shift from anxious to resolute as Anya explained the illegality of the rent hike and the landlord's shady history with previous small business tenants. I saw the landlord, a puffy man named Davies, turn pale when Anya served him with a thick packet of documents citing municipal codes and precedents. It ended not with a whimper, but with a new ironclad 5-year lease at a fair rate. The day it was signed, the cafe had a legal victory latte special. I ordered one, and when Lila brought it over, her eyes were bright. "I don't know how to thank your brother," she said, her voice full of genuine relief. "He was terrifying, in the best way."
"He has his moments," I said, smiling into my latte. "Just glad it worked out." "You know," she said, leaning against the empty chair opposite me, a gesture of newfound familiarity. "He asked the strangest thing at the end." My heart skipped a beat. "Oh?" "Yeah, after everything was signed, he said, 'Your father would be very proud of you, Miss Sterling.'" She laughed, a soft, puzzled sound. "Sterling, my last name is Miller. I told him he must have me confused with someone else. He just got this weird look and said, 'Of course, my mistake.'" The air left my lungs. Anya Vance was too good, too thorough. She must have done a background check, dug deeper than I'd anticipated. She'd found nothing, of course. Leila Miller had a clean, ordinary history, but the name Sterling had slipped out, a ghost from another story, knocking faintly on the door of this one. "He's a little eccentric," I managed, my throat tight, "but brilliant." "I'll say." She straightened up, brushing a strand of hair from her face, a gesture so quintessentially Lily it made my chest ache. "Well, the victory latte is on the house today, Leo, for the connection." The near-miss with the name shook me. It was a reminder that the past, my other past, was a live wire. I had to be more careful. My role was not to inject myself into her narrative, but to be a silent guardian, a fixed point of friendly support in her orbit. So I became a fixture, not just a customer, but a quiet asset. When her espresso machine, the heart of the cafe, gave a terminal gurgle, I happened to know a guy who refurbished commercial machines and could get her a loaner. I didn't know any such guy. I spent 2 frantic nights researching, calling, and paying the difference out of my own pocket to make the deal work. When a local food blog wrote a scathing, unfair review, I created 3 separate, detailed online profiles to post glowing counter-reviews, citing specific pastries and the warmth of the ambiance with the precision of a marketing exec, which, in a way, I had been. I was the ghost in the machine of her success, and it was the most fulfilling work I'd ever done. Then the weather turned, literally and figuratively. A historic storm system parked itself over the city. Rain fell in relentless gray sheets for days. Streets flooded, business downtown slowed to a crawl. The cheerful bustle of the Gilded Iris dwindled to a few desperate souls in damp coats. I saw the worry in Leela's eyes as she stared out at the drowning street. I knew the numbers. A cafe like hers operated on a knife's edge. A week of bad weather could be catastrophic. One evening, as she was closing early to a deserted room, I lingered. "Tough break," I said, nodding at the downpour. "It's a monsoon," she sighed, starting to wipe down the already spotless counter with a kind of frantic energy. "I can't even get deliveries. The supplier for the croissants can't get through the flooded underpass." The memory hit me like a lightning bolt. Not from Elliot's life, but from Leo's, from my original, boring life as a comp sci student. A hackathon, a forgotten side project. "Online," I abruptly said. "What?" "Your supplier can't get through, but people are stuck in their homes, bored, craving comfort. You make comfort." I grabbed a napkin and pulled a pen from my pocket. My mind, a hybrid of Leo's tech skills and Elliot's ruthless strategic thinking, began to race. "You don't need them to come to you, you go to them." I sketched a crude map of the neighborhood on the napkin. "You have a kitchen. You have a limited, storm-proof menu. Hearty soups, robust stews, sandwiches that travel well, cookies by the dozen. You create a simple online ordering system. I can build you a basic page in a few hours. We use a delivery app, or better yet, I recruit a couple of college kids with waterproof gear and good bikes, pay them cash, we market it as storm survival kits from the Gilded Iris." I looked up. She was staring at me, the damp cloth forgotten in her hand. Her expression was no longer worried. It was one of dawning, electrified comprehension. "Leo," she said slowly, "who are you? IT guys don't think like this." I forced a laugh. "This IT guy grew up helping his mom run a struggling deli. You learn to pivot or you drown." It was a lie, of course. My mom was an accountant. But the conviction in my voice was real. We worked through the night. In my apartment, fueled by instant noodles, I built a simple, elegant website. She was in her kitchen, calling every contact she had, sourcing ingredients that could be delivered from places not cut off by floods. By 7 a.m., the site was live. I'd used a small, anonymized portion of Elliot's long-lost wealth, cryptocurrency I'd meticulously transferred and hidden in this reality over time, to boost social media ads targeting our waterlogged zip codes. At 8 a.m., the first order pinged, then another, and another. For 3 days, the Gilded Iris transformed from a cafe into a bespoke storm kitchen. I didn't just handle the tech. I put on a raincoat and helped pack orders. I coordinated with the 2 bike messengers we'd hired. I saw Leela in her element, not as a polished heiress or a worried entrepreneur, but as a field marshal in an apron, her face smudged with flour, directing the creation and dispatch of culinary care packages. The crisis didn't break her, it revealed her. She was resilient, ingenious, and deeply kind, personally writing notes on every order. And the neighborhood responded. Orders weren't just for food, they were messages of solidarity. "Stay dry, thanks for doing this, you're a lifesaver." On the 4th day, the rain stopped. Sunlight, shockingly bright, streamed through the cafe's windows, illuminating the exhausted but triumphant mess. The last storm kit had been delivered.
Leela and I sat at a table surrounded by empty flour sacks and crates, drinking the first proper coffee we'd had in days. She looked at me, her eyes ringed with fatigue but shining. "We did it," she said, the we hanging in the air between us, weighty and significant. "We not only survived, we thrived. I think we made more this week than in the last 2 combined." "I told you," I said, sipping the glorious, bitter espresso. "You're the toughest flower, blooms after the storm." She tilted her head, that familiar, probing look in her eyes. "You say things like that, things that feel specific. The lawyer calling me sterling, you knowing exactly what to do in a crisis. It's like you have a playbook for my life." A cold trickle of fear ran down my spine. The ghost was getting closer. I had to deflect. "I just pay attention," I said, aiming for lightness. "And I believe in this place, in you." She held my gaze for a long moment, and I saw not suspicion, but a deep, searching curiosity. "Why?" she asked simply. "Why do you care so much, Leo? You're here more than some of my staff." The truth was a universe trapped behind my teeth. "Because I held you when you were a broken child. Because I fought dynasties for you. Because you are my daughter in every way that a soul can recognize another." What came out was a different, smaller truth, but no less real. "Because when I first walked in here, I was lost," I said quietly, looking into my cup. "I felt like I lived a whole other life and woke up back at the start, and none of it mattered. This place, you, it felt like an anchor, like proof that good, real, built with your own hands things could exist. You let me be a part of it. That's a gift." The air between us shifted. The dynamic of friendly customer and grateful owner evaporated. We were 2 people in a sunlit room, surrounded by the evidence of a shared battle won. Leela reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. Her fingers were warm, stained with chocolate and spice. "Well," she said, her voice soft but firm, "the part you've played isn't a small one, and I don't think I'm letting you be part of it. I think you just are." It was an invitation, not to a past she couldn't remember, but to a present she was offering, not as father and daughter, but as partners, as equals, as something new, built not on the ashes of a tragic plot, but on the solid, damp foundation of a real storm weathered together. The ghost of Elliot Sterling smiled within me, finally at peace. His job was done. The empire was safe. The air was magnificent. The ghost of Leo Chen, the scared kid, finally faded. The man sitting in the sunbeam, his hand under hers, was just me, a man with 2 pasts and a single clear present. I turned my hand over and laced my fingers with hers. The connection was electric, alive, and utterly unhaunted. "The sun's out," I said. "What's the next crisis? I hear a food truck wants to park across the street?" She laughed, the sound ringing through the empty, triumphant cafe. "Bring it on," she said, and I knew with every fiber of my being that we would face it, not as echoes of a forgotten story, but as the authors of a brand new one, page by page, cup by cup. The sun-bathed peace of the cafe felt like a victory lap. It stretched into weeks of new, steady growth. Leela and I settled into a rhythm that was both comfortable and charged with something unspoken. I was no longer just a regular. I was a consultant, a tech guy, a friend who stayed late to help with inventory. The past, both of mine, receded into a gentle hum, a foundation, not a haunting. Then a familiar name broke the peace like a stone through stained glass. Sebastian. Not my Sebastian, the arrogant boy I'd kicked out of a mansion. This Sebastian was featured in a sleek business magazine Leela had left on the counter. The headline read, "Sebastian Miller, Eco-Tech Prodigy Returns to Forge Green Future." The photo showed a man in his late 20s, sharp-suited, but with a calm, confident demeanor that spoke of hard-earned maturity, not inherited arrogance. He was the CEO of Viridian Dynamics, a Singapore-based sustainable energy firm. Lila's brother, the marine biologist, he was back. My blood ran cold. This wasn't in the script, in any script. In my Elliot life, Sebastian had been sent away to find himself. In this life, he seems to have done exactly that, and spectacularly well. Lila was thrilled. "He's been away for ages," she said, showing me the article, her face alight with a sisterly pride that was pure and uncomplicated. "Building his own thing. He wants to expand here, open a North American HQ. He's coming to town next week." The day Sebastian Miller walked into the Gilded Iris, the air changed. He wasn't the petulant boy I remembered. He carried an aura of quiet power. His eyes, the same shade as Lila's, scanned the room with analytical warmth before landing on her. Their hug was long and tight. Then his gaze found me, leaning against the counter, a dish towel in my hand. There was a fraction of a pause, a micro-expression of profound, searching recognition that flickered and was gone, replaced by polite curiosity. "Lila's told me about her guardian angel of IT and legal strategy," he said, extending a hand. His grip was firm. "Sebastian." "Leo," I said, my voice thankfully steady. "She's the brains and the heart. I just handle some wiring." He smiled, but his eyes held a strange intensity. "I've found the most crucial systems often have the most unexpected wiring." Over the next few days, Sebastian was a constant, pleasant presence. He adored his sister, was impressed by her cafe, and full of ideas for Viridian's local launch. He was perfect, and it set every nerve in my body on edge. It was too neat, a corrected version of my failed son inserted into this corrected version of my daughter's life. The unease crystallized one evening after closing. Sebastian had stayed late, and we were sharing a beer. Lila had gone upstairs to her apartment above the cafe. "So, Leo," Sebastian began, swirling his bottle, "Lila says you just appeared, became a fixture. No past ties to the neighborhood, no prior connection." "Just liked the coffee," I said, the old deflection ready on my tongue. He took a slow drink. "It's funny, in all my travels I've had this recurring notion, a feeling that I had a sister to protect, but that I'd failed, a duty left undone." He looked directly at me, and the polished CEO vanished. For a second, I saw the ghost of the desperate boy being dragged away by police. "It's why I threw myself into my work, to build something worthy, to be a protector, not a liability." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "When I saw you with her, I felt a jolt, not jealousy, relief, as if the duty had been passed to a more capable guardian." My heart hammered against my ribs. "That's a lot to put on the local computer guy." "Is it?" he asked softly. "You look at her like you've known her forever. You fight for this place like it's your own kingdom. Who are you, really?" The truth was a dam about to break. He was probing the edges of a reality he couldn't possibly know, yet somehow felt. He was seeking absolution, not from me, but from a ghost he carried. I made a decision, not the full catastrophic truth, but a shard of it. "Let's say," I began, choosing my words with the care of a bomb disposal expert, "that in another life, another story, you and I were on opposite sides. You were blinded by loyalty to the wrong person, and I had to make a choice to protect Lila, to protect the truth of who she was, that hurt you deeply. A choice that, in the end, maybe saved us all." The silence in the cafe was absolute. Sebastian's face went pale. He didn't look confused. He looked seen, as if I'd just described the nightmare he woke from in a cold sweat. "It felt like a dream," he whispered, staring into the middle distance. "A horrible, vivid dream. A girl in rags, a father's fury, a betrayal and a fall." He blinked, refocusing on me, his eyes wide. "You." "In that story," I said, holding his gaze, "you found your way back. You earned a second chance. It seems like you've done that here, too, spectacularly well. The past is a country we don't have to live in, Sebastian. Not her, not you, not me." He released a long, shuddering breath. The tension bled from his shoulders. He didn't ask for proof. He didn't demand explanations. The resonance of the feeling was proof enough. "Is she safe?" he asked, his core of being laid bare in the question. "She's more than safe," I said, a genuine smile touching my lips. "She built this. No one gave it to her, and no one can take it from her." He nodded slowly, a weight visibly lifting from him. The ghost was laid to rest. "Then my duty is complete, and my gratitude is immense." He finished his beer and stood up, the CEO mask settling back into place, but now it seemed less like armor and more like a well-fitted suit. "Take care of her, Leo, and take care of yourself." He left, and the cafe felt different. Not haunted, but reconciled. A loose thread from a burned tapestry had been neatly tucked away. The final test came from an unexpected direction. The past, I thought, was entirely fiction. A new customer started appearing. A woman, elegant, but with a faded, hungry look in her eyes. She always ordered the most expensive tea and sat for hours, watching Leela. Her name, she said, was Victoria. She claimed to be a freelance writer working on a piece about independent cafes. But I knew her. The set of her jaw, the way her eyes lingered on Leela's profile with a mixture of yearning and resentment. She was a ghost from the book. Not Wendy, not Anastasia. She was Genevieve. In The Gilded Cage, Genevieve was a minor, tragic figure, Elliot Sterling's forgotten first love, a woman from his youth before he married Wendy. The book mentioned her in a single throwaway line as having died young of a broken heart. But here she was, very much alive, and drawn like a moth to the flame of Leela's existence. Her presence was a crack in reality. She didn't belong in this world at all. Was she a coincidence, a cosmic glitch, or was the plot, like a virus, finding new ways to replicate? She began talking to Leela, spinning tales of a great lost love, a man named Elliot who was meant for her, a life stolen by a gold-digging imposter. She spoke in vague, romanticized terms, but the poison was there, the suggestion that Leela's very existence was built on a foundation of another woman's pain. Leela, being Leela, was kind but firm. She listened politely but distantly. "The past belongs to those who lived it, Victoria. We have to build our own stories." But Genevieve escalated. She started leaving old photos on the table, doctored, I was sure, images of a young man who vaguely resembled a softer Elliot, with a woman who resembled Genevieve. She whispered to other customers that Leela's family had a dark history. This wasn't a business rival or a greedy landlord. This was an attack on Leela's peace, on the very legitimacy of her happy, self-made present. It was a ghost trying to pull her into a tragedy that never was. I couldn't use a lawyer or a business strategy. This required a deeper exorcism. I waited until Genevieve was alone at her usual table. I sat down across from her without an invitation. "Genevieve," I said, my voice low. Her head snapped up, her eyes widening in shock at the name. "The story you're telling is wrong. The Elliot Sterling you're fantasizing about died a long time ago. He died a fool, leaving a real daughter to suffer." I leaned in closer. "But in this world, that daughter lived. She survived. She thrived without him. She doesn't need his ghost, and she certainly doesn't need yours. Your story ended. Hers is just beginning. If you try to stain her world with your bitterness again, you will find that the past is not as friendly as you think. I will ensure you are remembered only as the sad, deluded woman who harassed a good business owner. Nothing more." I was channeling Elliot Sterling at his most ruthlessly protective. Not the billionaire, but the father, the lion. Genevieve shrank back in her seat, all the fight draining out of her. The fictional tragedy she'd wrapped herself in couldn't withstand the cold, hard light of this better reality. She saw in my eyes that I knew her entire script, and I was tearing it up. She never came back to the cafe, and with her departure, the last faint echo of the gilded cage finally faded into silence. Every ghost was accounted for, every debt was paid. Years flowed, sweet as Leela's honey lavender syrup. The Gilded Iris became a neighborhood institution. It expanded, opening a small bakery next door. Leela wrote a cookbook. She fell in love with a quiet, kind architect who designed her bakery and looked at her like she'd hung the moon. I gave him the same scrutinizing look I'd once given a billionaire fiancé and found him worthy. Sebastian's Viridian Dynamics became a leader in green tech. He and Leela were inseparable, siblings, their bond unshadowed by any past but their own. He became a friend of sorts. We never spoke of that night again, but a mutual, deep respect existed between us.
My role evolved. I left my IT job. Officially, I became Leela's business partner and the digital strategist for a small, prestigious group of local businesses, including Viridian's local PR. Unofficially, I was her family. I was Uncle Leo, who fixed the website, told terrible jokes, and was always there for Sunday dinner. One spring afternoon, many years later, I was helping Leela plant new herbs in the cafe's window boxes. Her daughter, a fierce-eyed 5-year-old named Iris, was helping by putting far too much soil in one pot. "Uncle Leo," Leela said, sitting back on her heels, her hands covered in dirt. "I've never really asked, why did you stay? All these years, you could have done anything." Iris looked up, her little face smudged. "Yeah, Uncle Leo, why?" I looked at them. The woman who was my heart's daughter and the child who was my heart's grandchild, in this sun-dappled, ordinary, perfect moment. The truth was a novel locked away in a dimension far away. The simpler truth was just as real. I picked up a trowel and patted the soil around a rosemary plant. Its scent, sharp and clean, filled the air. "Once upon a time," I said, my voice easy and warm, "I read a very sad story about a girl who didn't get the happy ending she deserved. It bothered me, so I decided to put the book down and go write a better one." I smiled at Leela, then winked at little Iris. "Turns out this is my favorite story to be in." Leela smiled back, a smile that held acceptance, love, and a wisdom that needed no explanation. She reached over and squeezed my dirty hand. "Mine too." And it was. It really, truly was.